My name is Jeff Austin. I'm here on behalf of the Maine Municipal Association, testifying neither for nor against both bills. In anticipation that you might take them together, I've consolidated our testimony onto one sheet. It's a good day in many ways for us too, as the mood in the room appears to be very pro-local control and home rule in a way that you don't often hear in this building, and you certainly don't often hear on bills. And I'm glad there are cameras running, and I'm going to ask someone for a copy of the tape, because it is encouraging to see such confidence in local decision making, and attempts to expand it are greatly appreciated. Sometimes when I stand before you neither for nor against, it's because there's a division within our house. As you know, we have a 70-member policy committee. They meet monthly. They met on March 12th to review these bills. Sometimes they just don't have a single unified opinion. Some oppose, some against, and so they send us in here, neither for nor against. That is not the case here. There was no one who spoke against the legislation, either bill. There were a few who spoke in support of it. But the general mood in the room was, as is often the case as I testify before you, we're not exactly clear that there's a problem that this legislation solves. I'm often asking you not to pre-solve problems. So many people attempt to pre-regulate, pre-control towns. Personally, there's 3 of us who lobby. I have 12 bills today. There are lots of bills that try to govern the way municipalities undertake their activities. And so we're often asking the legislature to slow down. As our members reviewed this legislation, they thought slowing down was the right approach. If the committee is inclined to pass them, you're not going to see opposition from us, certainly. But at this point, our policy committee did not ask me to come in and egg you on and encourage you to enact them. Why? Many municipalities, we have 70 members on our committee, approximately 50 or 60 show up on a monthly basis for our policy committee meetings. 2 different municipal officials from 2 different municipalities relayed positive experiences on the issue of sustainability regarding a large-scale water bottler. Those 2 municipalities had been approached by this company, and overtures were made about putting in pumping stations. And as I understand it, monitoring wells were established, and it was the company who returned to the towns, who had by that point become excited about the prospect of more revenue and potentially more jobs. And it was the company that twice said, we don't think your aquifer works because of a sustainability issue. And it was the company that walked away. Now, this is only 2 experiences, but when those 2 first-hand experiences get relayed to a larger body, many of whom have no personal direct experience, it is influential. So there certainly is not, at least that I can see in our membership, a mood of fear of the companies. The second direct or indirect experience was, as you've heard, the existence of ordinances today. There are ordinances, you've heard of Freiburg's and Denmark's, and there may be others, I believe there are a few others, that touch upon the issues of large-scale water extraction. And again, because those ordinances have to this point not been challenged, we believe we can wait. Our policy committee believes we can wait and continue to govern as we're governing today without further state legislation. Some might rightfully say we're playing chicken, pitting home rule against a large international company. Maybe so. We would like to believe that home rule is strong enough to stand up on this issue today. I don't know that that's the case. You've had some conversations about it. I think Mr. Fisk's explanation of home rule was the closest to accurate that I heard today, as I understand it. Home rule, if it means what it's supposed to mean, means you do not need to ask for permission. Our friends in New Hampshire are not a home rule state. My colleagues in New Hampshire are frustrated that they have to go to the state if they want to put a gumball machine in town hall. They don't have that home rule authority. And so while I appreciate the passionate testimony to give local decision makers authority, it is an oxymoron to say we need to give home rule authority. That doesn't fit. Home rule authority exists unless taken away. And so while our policy committee did not delve into a legal theory conversation, as staff, we do have a little bit of a concern that the more times you grant municipalities permission to do something, you erode the concept of home rule. You give the courts the ability to say, you see, we're really not a home rule state. The legislature, they have to give the towns the authority before they act. Now, as you heard, while we have not been directly preempted, which is the standard way home rule authority gets knocked down, there is a concept of implied preemption. And that generally occurs when you have set up a regulatory scheme that so occupies the field that any local regulatory scheme would frustrate your purpose. I've read the Denmark ordinance. I've read, to the extent I understand them, the different state regulatory provisions. I don't know that what Denmark or Freiburg has done has upset or disrupted the state regulatory scheme. Nobody can guarantee that. I would not ask you to ask Susan to say, has home rule been preempted so far? It's not a clean answer. But again, because it hasn't yet been challenged and because it hasn't yet failed, we would like to think that home rule is strong enough to stand up. We would encourage you, as other committees have done, to become familiar with the current state-level regime for water extraction governance. It is across multi-departments, it has multiple thresholds, and it has multiple purposes. And if you are concerned that it is not thorough enough and that you want to explicitly provide municipalities authority, again, our policy committee doesn't object, although we as staff like to believe in the principle of home rule and that it is strong enough not to need such permissions. Process and public hearing. Representative Walsh asked about that earlier. That came up in our policy committee's discussion as well. To the extent that there were voices that were more supportive of actually coming in here and endorsing this legislation, they came out of the Kennebunkport Wells area in that controversy last summer where the water utility was proposing to sell water and the citizens were upset. As you may know, the Utilities Committee has had a couple of bills regulating how water utilities are going to be allowed, or the process really that they're going to be using before they undertake such large-scale water sales in the future. Again, I believe it only covers water utilities that attempt to sell it, but I believe LD663 is moving through, although it's had 4 work sessions. I believe it's worked through the committee, and I'd encourage you to look at that. So it's hard for our committee not to jump at the opportunity to support more authority being given to us. You're going to hear from me later. Our normal shtick, please don't take it away. Please don't further erode it directly, as you're going to be asked to do later today and other committees around the building are doing today. And so we want the respect for local authority. We're just not at a point where we can say, or we need to say, here's a topic where you need to give us that authority. We think we can at least keep on keeping on. At some point, if we play chicken and lose, we absolutely reserve the right to come back. So with that, I conclude my testimony. I don't know if I turned it in, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Austin, for your testimony. Are there any Representative Knapp?
Could you please repeat that other LD number that worked through the other committee?
I believe the one that's coming out is LD663, and it's been worked multiple times, but I believe it's finally been voted.
Any more questions for Mr. Austin? Seeing none, thanks again for your testimony.
Thank you.